An expletive. A journalist asked the president about the political costs of rising inflation and the midterm elections. And the president didn't like the question. Take a listen.
Will you take questions on inflation then?
Thank you. Thank you
Do you
all.
think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son.
So NewsNation has learned the president called that reporter after what was said on that hot microphone and said, it's nothing personal. I think his words exactly were, it's not personal, pal. That reporter was later seen on air laughing off the president's remarks, saying he's thankful Mr. Biden called him to clear the air, but also saying, hey, doesn't matter what he calls me. I'm just glad he responded. White House correspondent Allison Harris, no stranger to covering the president. Allison, has the White House issued any kind of statement on this? I think there are going to be a lot of people who think that this is not at all in character for the commander-in-chief, a person of such high stature here. And then others will say this was not as big a deal as some are making it. So everybody's got an opinion on this. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Adrian, I think that many would say this is not characteristic of President Biden, not just as president, but also as who he is as a person. No statement from the White House. We wouldn't necessarily anticipate an official statement from the White House on this, but we know from the Fox News correspondent, Peter Doocy, he says the president did call him last night to clear the air. As you mentioned, he says the president says, it's nothing personal, pal. This is surprising, not just because it's uncharacteristic of the president, but also because these two spar all the time, and the president, frankly, seems to enjoy it. They kind of have this rapport, understanding that Fox News viewers are probably not making up the strongest part of the president's base, and they do this quite often, almost daily, pretty much every week when they have an exchange at the White House. And this correspondent has been covering the president since he was on the campaign trail, since he was, speaking back in Delaware and Wilmington, where he's from. So this was surprising. And Adrian, we're characterizing it as a hot mic moment. Everyone is. But I think it is kind of interesting to note the president was standing squarely behind the lectern with cameras in front of him, the microphone right in front of him. He is no stranger to being covered by the press. This wasn't him walking out of the room and saying something that was caught on a hot mic.
I am so glad you said that, because that was exactly what I was thinking when I saw it. I was like, do I really call this a hot mic? It wasn't like he was taken by surprise. He was standing there having just finished answering or making comments on the microphone. I just think that a lot of times in the culture that we're in today, we're seeing us become kind of tone deaf or tuned out to certain words. And like you said, this reporter and the president know each other very, very well. They've had other exchanges that might have been just as provocative. We just don't know.
And the president on day one of his administration also said he would not tolerate anyone in his administration disrespecting someone. He said that would be grounds to fire them on the spot. You know, he's someone who he thinks of himself, and many people do think of him as a person of empathy. He talks about that often, of his moral character, his moral strength and fortitude. So this was a departure from that, and just interesting to see him in a very heated moment.
Yeah. Heated, but again, we're not in his head. We don't know if it was mean-spirited. It's just an interesting exchange, and it's really interesting to see how people are responding to it. I think that's...
Yeah.
All right, Allison, thank you so much. Still ahead. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.